Thank you, Mr President. I rise in support of the motion put forward by the honourable member and to add what I hope to be an important contribution for our South Australian Iranian community. We absolutely should acknowledge the call for democracy in Iran and condemn the inappropriate use of force against protesters, and I do acknowledge the gender-based oppression of women and girls in that country and implore for an improvement in conditions for minorities. My primary concern is for those members of our community who have moved here from Iran and are now an important part of the society of South Australia. I've been told firsthand how difficult it is to witness current events from afar. Their impact brings to the surface memories many would like to leave in the past, but may also bring a feeling of grief for family and loved ones left behind. This is why I wish to move the motion that's been circulated standing in my name to show our support to the South Australian Iranian community who have been a part of our cultural tapestry since the 1950s. Show our support to the South Australian Iranian community who have been part of our cultural tapestry since the 1950s. Iranians have been contributing to the South Australian community since the 1950s. Census shows there are 4,500 of Iranian birth, and that number again of those of Iranian descent living here. I acknowledge the community groups, Iranian Women's Association, the Persian Cultural Association of South Australia, Persian Cultural Group Baha'i, local spiritual assemblies of the Baha'i of South Australia, the Iranian Women's Organisation South Australia Incorporated, all whom play an important part in the balance of upholding tradition, culture and faith, whilst promoting cohesion, learning and integration. I acknowledge the many Iranian Australians who have contributed to our society. The South Australian Migration Museum notes the first Iranian migrants arrived in Adelaide towards the end of the 1950s, and since that time they have been welcomed members of our society, adding to the tapestry that is our modern culture. We must acknowledge that Iranian South Australians come from a number of religious backgrounds, including Christian, Muslim, Baha'i, Judaism and, of course, Zoroastrian and Iranian religion, and one of the world's oldest organised faiths, based on the teaching of the Iranian-speaking prophet Zoroaster. Mr President, I want to shine a light on the vast academic and professional contribution of our Iranian Australian population. The 2016 census notes that the Iran-Australian population has a higher proportion, over 40% of adults with university qualifications, than the general population. They bring skills and knowledge to our economy, and this is reflective of the professional workers who arrived in Australia during the 80s, 90s and early 2000s. I applaud the high aspirations many young and second-generation Iranian Australians show with their studies and careers. Mr President, I especially call this Chamber's attention to Mr Aman Abrahimzadeh, OAM, Ambassador of White Ribbon Australia, nationally prominent anti-domestic violence campaigner and founder of the Zara Foundation here in South Australia, supporting victims of domestic violence to re-establish themselves financially as they escape domestic violence situations. Mr Abrahimzadeh and his sisters migrated from Iran in the 1990s, along with both his parents, after the horrific public murder of his mother at the hands of his father. Mr Abrahimzadeh has been instrumental in creating change in both legislative and cultural forms for domestic and family violence. In conclusion, the Iranian Australian community can be incredibly proud of their contribution to the fabric of South Australia. One nation recognises all Australians, regardless of their faith or ethnic background, as worthy of the important values of democracy, freedom and respect. This motion is the right thing to do, and we must ensure that human rights are protected, and I support the honourable member's motion and hope this small amendment to specifically recognise our own Iranian Australian community is viewed as a positive contribution by the Chamber.